which initiates with a paragraph is something which initiates with a kind of a thought. And whenever we are writing a thought or whenever we are writing it in a paragraph, the structure should be, the word limit should be 100 to 150. Not more than that, not exceeding the limit. Apart from that, when we people are writing about a paragraph, so in a paragraph, what happens? You cannot include the subpara. You cannot include, the paragraph should be complete in itself. So that is how we formulate it. Apart from that, then we come to the writing a composition. So what is a composition? So whenever we are writing a composition, I'm just talking about the epistemology, the terms which are being included right now in order to get that, so that the students may get the idea that what all things we are going to learn further. So if you people want to write the notes and if you have certain kind of the queries, the last half an hour will be kept for the question and answer. In between, if any question, any student have any kind of a query, so they can just ask by raising their hand. So I will just give them a kind of a chance to ask them a question. Ask me a question. So then when we are talking about how the thought is being developed, see, when we people are talking about the basic foundation, when we people are talking about what a communication is, okay, so what this thing is all about. So when we people are talking about the term communication, and when we people, that means when we people are talking about what a language is, what is the role of a language, what is the role of a dialect, okay. So why we use a language? So language is something which can be considered as a medium of communication. Okay, so that means ki wherever there are two parts. Okay, that means ki on one hand we have the sender, on the other hand we have the receiver. So the sender, what he does, on one hand he just sends you a kind of a message, like with a kind of a post-COVID. So what we have done, we have shifted from the classroom to the classrooms. So here, what we have seen in the form of a virtual mode, what we can do, we can learn certain kind of the things. So here, in a kind of a communication, the sender is someone who is sending you a kind of a message, and that message is something which is in an encoded form. And that message is to be understood, or that message is something which is to be decoded by the listener or the person who is on the receiving kind of an end. So this is something which can be considered as a two-way process, and that is how once whatever the sender is trying to communicate, if the messenger through a kind of a messenger, and if it is being understood, that kind of a communication is something which can be considered as a complete communication. Here, again, when we are talking about language, so what is the role of a language? Why English is very, very important? English is something through which what we people can do, we can continue, we can channelize our thoughts. So for that, what we need a kind of a medium to communicate. There are certain kind of the languages also. The language can be a sign language. The language can be through the mode of actions through which we can share. But when we are using a kind of a dialect, when we people are using a kind of a language, so that can be a common kind of a frame, that is an English language. So here in this foundation course in English, you have certain basic form. I completely, this is what I think, that you have a basic understanding of English. Is it, am I right or wrong? Is it yes or no? Okay, okay. So the basic understanding is like your English. So here what we have seen that, okay, thank you. That means you can just text your messages also. And if you have any queries, you can just type your messages or type your questions in the chat box. I can just see through it. So that is where we people will be talking about what is a paragraph. That means there is a basic topic which is being given, and on that topic, what you have to do, you just have to understand and you just have to elaborate. The word limit should not exceed, as I told you, that the word limit should be between 100 to 150 words. Paragraph does not include, whenever we are writing a paragraph does not include a subpara. Okay, so that means ki all your thoughts should start directly straight from the topic. It doesn't have an introduction. Whatever is the topic, we will directly talk about that topic only. That is how we are going to formulate a kind of a paragraph. Apart from that, what is a composition? That means in unit 1, we are going to deal with what is a composition, what is an expository kind of a composition. So that is again, wherever we are composing a kind of a thing. So that is something which can be considered as a composition. Composition is something which always is compromised of introduction. It is compromised of a basic history. It includes certain kind of the plus points and the negative points, and then finally it comes towards the conclusion. So that all things are the one which we include in a kind of a communication, or which we include in a kind of a composition. See, whenever we people are talking about what are the techniques, what are the modes. So, as per my knowledge, and that is how we study, there is a kind of a technique which is known as LSRW. Okay, L is something, LSRW. L is for listening, S is for speaking, R is for reading, and W is for writing. So wherever we are, so there are two. Wherever we are talking about listening and reading. So both these process are where we take. These are the kind of the activities where we receive things. Maximum times whenever we are talking about the students. So the students are also someone who will always talk about one thing. That means ki they maximum time what they do, they used to listen to the lectures. How much do they gain from the lectures? That is also which actually does matter. Okay. So here where we people are talking about, that comes under the listening form. That means 70% of our time is something where we receive certain kind of a knowledge. So that is through the listening. Then when we come to the another kind where we people, I will be coming to the coherence in the paragraph, that I will be talking about that thing also. So here when wherever we are talking about the thing, that means wherever we are writing, so writing is something where we are giving something. That means ki what we are doing, we are just writing. That means ki all the thoughts are coming in a form of a channelized manner. So that is something that is a part of what we write. Apart from that, when we read, so reading is also something which where we are trying to accumulate something, where we are learning something, where we grab something. And when it comes to the speaking or when it comes to the writing, so what happens? We are just giving. So whatever till now we have learned, what we are going to do, that is something where we are just going to give a kind of an answer. That means ki here one is the receiving and another is what we are doing, we are producing. That means ki whatever thoughts we have understood, that is something which we are going to write, and that is what we are going to channelize. So that is the difference between the listening and the reading. In a listening and reading, we receive, and on the other hand, where we come to the writing, where we come to the speaking, what we do is we just give, or we just produce certain kind of the ideas. Okay. Now, there was a kind of a question in between that what do we understand by the coherence? Coherence means कि whenever we are writing a paragraph, the writing, it should be in a very lucid manner. The thought should be very, very clear. Coherence means, that means कि here all the thoughts should be, that means the point should be one after the another. That doesn't mean that something we are writing from one track and then we are writing from the another track. The writing should be very, very systematic. It should not consider, it should not it should not contain any kind of, that means ki one thought is coming from one point and the other thought is coming from the other point. So that should not come. So that is how we are going to develop our paragraph. Since these are a kind of a writing, because these doesn't contains any kind of the lectures, these are something, today I'm just giving you a kind of a generalized form of what is the basic structure of your whole course module. That doesn't mean that I'm going here what we are going to do. I will be giving you one more thing, that means I will be sharing you certain kind of the screens, I will be giving you certain kind of the tasks, and through those kind of the exercises, what we are going to do, we are going to give the answer. You will get certain kind of the assignments which you have to submit weekly. So that is how you are going to deal with it. Apart from that, there are the second block which you have. That is, again, one is the expository, and then again, block number 2 contains of 12 units. Okay, so that means, okay, just wait. Does anyone have a question? You can just unmute and please ask your question. Can you unmute? Okay, so no question. If you have any question, any doubt, please write it in the chat box. So when we come to the block 2, so here what we have another kind of a thing, that is argumentative composition. And unit 7 and unit 8 is something which is being divided into argumentative kind of a composition. What is an argumentative kind of a composition and what is an expository kind of a composition? What is the difference between them? I will let you know. Then here we have another topic which can be considered as how to make a report. So whenever it comes to a report writing is something which deals with certain kind of the things where you have to write a report that is based on a kind of a fact. Sometimes what happens when we are attending a kind of a meeting also, so for that also we have to frame a report. So that is how we are going to write a report. So all these things, foundation course in English language, is something which is dealing with all these kind of the things which includes your writing techniques, how to enhance your writing techniques, how to enhance your writing abilities, and how you are going to mention, how you are going to explain. All these things are there. Apart from that, how to write a summary. So what you will be doing, I will be giving you a kind of a paragraph, or I will be giving you a kind of a composition. You have to read it. You have to suggest the title for it. You have to mention. Sometimes what happens whenever we are attending a kind of an interview, sometimes. So that means there are two people who are talking to each other. So how to brief it out? There will be certain argumentative is something that means here what we are, that means that here there will be a kind of a conversation, and that conversation is to be framed. And how you are going to frame that conversation, how you are going to write a summary about that one. So that is something which you are going to deal. Then there is another kind of a, then we are shifting towards the block 3. So block 3 is something which constitutes of your writing a paragraph. That again is something which is being divided into 18 units, and unit number 13 includes writing paragraph, that is part number 3. Unit 14 contains narrative composition. Okay, so when we come to a narration, what do you mean by narration? What do you mean by narrative? What is a narration? Okay, so that is something which is there between unit number 14 and unit number 15. Then we come to unit number 16, and that is writing a report, reporting a kind of an interview. Unit number 17 is something which is talking about writing a report which is based on a kind of a survey. And then what is unit number 18 is something how to write a summary. So that is how your block 3 is being segregated, and that is how it is being given. Now when we come to the block number 4, so block number 4 contains a descriptive composition. That means keep unit number 19, unit number 20, unit number 21 is something which deals with what are the descriptive kind of a composition. That is something which we are going to deal. And on unit number 22, we are going to talk about what is a note taking. And unit number 23, we will be again writing about what is writing a report and what are the report experiments. And unit number 24 is something where we are going to just sum up. So now, on the other hand, where we people are talking about block number 1, where we people are talking about writing a paragraph and what are the kind of the composition, how to write, how to compose a kind of a thought. So this is what we people are going to deal about. Okay, so here just give me 1 minute. I will be just sharing a screen in front of you, and then I will be talking about how to write a paragraph. Just give me 1 minute. Yes. So here, if we just talk about the one thing that is here, when we people are talking about what includes, when we people are talking about what is writing a paragraph is. So here, when we people are saying that when we have to just write any kind of a piece of a writing in a form of a paragraph. So I'm just sharing a kind of a screen there. You will get a kind of an example, and just do let me know that if my screen is visible to you or not. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is something which is being given in your syllabus, and this is something which is a kind of a course material which is being given to you. So here where people will be talking about what a paragraph is. Okay, so here what they had done, since what we have seen that whenever we are talking about a kind of a paragraph, so what is the thing which is being governed over there? So there is a kind of a theme. That means ki we should be just focusing on what a theme is. So that theme is something which is our priority, and on that theme, what we people will be dealing, we people will be talking about that one. So here, if you just look towards the course book, you will find that there is a kind of an example which is being given. Okay, so here what it says, there is an example. I'm just focusing on example number one. So what does example number one says? Example number one says that the vast majority of the people, wherever they live and whatever their occupation, come in contact with the animal in one way or another and have to deal with them. It is obvious that the hunter has to know the ways of his quarry, that the farmer must be aware of the habits of his farmyard animals and the creatures that damage his crops, that the fisherman must know that when and where to find his fish and how to outwit them. Even in the modern city, dwellers meet animals. He may want to ward off the road in the kitchen and may have keep a dog or bird to grow familiar with the way his pets behave. All over the world, among the primitive type as well as in the modern society, there are those who delight with the observations of the animals and their growing awareness of the fact that sharing our world with our fellow creature is like traveling together, and we enjoy being surrounded by others being who, like ourselves, are deeply absorbed in the adventure of living. There is a growing sense of a marvel and also the affinity. So this is just a kind of an example, and that is something which is being taken from animal behavior, and that is the Time Life books. So this is how they have given. So that means ki here, whenever we are talking about a paragraph, so paragraph always starts with a topic, and whatever a topic is being given, that topic is something which helps to both the writer as well as the reader to construct a kind of a paragraph. So here, what they had done, they had just given a kind of a comprehension right in front of you, and after that, what they had done, they had given the certain kind of the question and answers. The first question which they are asking, that what suggest what will be the title which you would like to give to this paragraph. So what according to you should be a kind of a title which should be given to this kind of a paragraph? Can anyone suggest any kind of a title?
Hello to everyone. I think The Adventure of Living can be a good title for it.
The adventure of living?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else apart from this? Okay. So the next question will be, why does the hunter need to know the way of his quarries? Any answer for this? No answer? Can anyone suggest any right kind of an answer? No answers? No answers from your side? See, there was one title, and that title was The Adventure of Living, which you people have. suggested. Apart from that, what should be the proper answers for the what do you mean by the queries?
Queries mean like something like a bird or animal which you are hunting, which is hunted.
And-
That we are calling query.
Okay, so that is something which is already being given over the text. Apart from that,
Yeah.
okay, so when we are going to just focus on the questions, okay, so the question paper and the module of the question paper will be like this. There will be a kind of a paragraph. Now, if we have to write a paragraph, how we are going to write a paragraph? That is also something which actually does matter. If we have to write a paragraph, so how do we mention it? How do we write that paragraph? What will be a kind of a theme in that paragraph? So that is something which you have to mention, which you have to write, and that is something which is important. Okay. So apart from this, the coherence of the thought, the unity of the thought is something which is mandatory, which is important, which actually includes in a kind of a paragraph writing. Now, suppose if I give you, I'm just going to share my screen again, and we are just going to discuss few more. Is the screen visible?
No, madam.
The screen is not visible.
No, it's not visible.
Huh? What's
Now it's visible.
Okay, so is it visible now?
Yes, madam.
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay. So here what we people have seen, there are certain kind of the things. That means the second question was that why does the hunter need to know the way of his quarry? Okay, so why is it important? So you just have to give a kind of the answer that why it is important. If I just reread it or if I just ask you this kind of a question, that means ki here what that means the query. That means ki everyone should know that what he needs or she needs in his own life. So that is something why if we have a kind of a knowledge, then only what we can do, we can just continue with it. Okay. So that is why having a basic understanding is something which will always give you a kind of how you will navigate or how you are going to channelize yourself. Now, the question number third is something give two examples of how a modern city dwellers come in contact with the animals. So, what will be the answer for this one? How will be the modern city dwellers will come in contact with the animals? What will be the proper answer for this?
First, there are
They
Yeah.
they usually keep animal as a pet, and they usually eat animal like they eat chicken or fish.
Okay. So that can be considered as a kind of their behavior. Apart from that, the next question will be the are the animals always a source of pleasure for him? Which words tell you that sometimes they are not?
roots. They're saying like most sometimes the pets or the animals are not pleasure for someone.
Why?
I don't know why, but sometimes it's not.
Why the pet animals are not good? I'm not talking about the pet animals. Sometimes there are other kind of the animals also.
Yeah, sometimes the animals are like they are scareable. They are scaring
Hmm.
someone, and some animals are just hunting the humans. That's why they are not
Hmm.
like them. Or some, for example, we can say like some things which they are destroying our living. So we are just
Hmm.
saying they are like roaches.
Okay. So that is something which can be considered as, but that cannot be a kind of a proper answer. Any other?
Uh, Teacher, I think the dog is also a kind of animal. It's not pleasure always
Hmm.
because they can beat humans.
Okay. Now, just if we just look towards the second topic, okay. The second topic, there is another kind of a paragraph, and what does it mean? The paragraph, I think my screen is visible. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in this example, we see that in the year 1830, a French official unearthed in the valley of a Somme strange implement of a flint now recognized as a weapon with which the men of the Old Stone Age made war. With this modest tool of death, it seems, Neanderthal men from what is now Germany and the Cro-Magnon men from what is now France fought 50,000 years ago for a mastery of a continent, and after a day of a lusty battle left perhaps a score of dead on the field. 20 years ago, modern German and modern Frenchmen fought again, and in the same valley of the same prize with magnificent tool of death that killed thousand men in a day. One art alone has made indisputable progress in a history, and that is the art of war. So this is something which is being adapted from Will Durant, Why Men Fight. Okay, so here, what does it mean? That there are a kind of, if we just look towards the exercise, what does the question which they are raising is that in this context of example number 2, what are the points of similarities between the event that took place in the ancient and the modern time? Give to an instance. So what are those?
I think these are the two kinds of men. One is Neanderthal, men from German, and Cro-Magnon, men from
Hmm,
France.
hmm. And nothing else.
Yeah, like they were fighting for 1,000 years. Mm, I mean, 1,000 years ago, they were just fighting for some reasons.
Okay. The moment I share my screen, this is what I find that most of you people run away, isn't it? And then again, when we start the screen, then I see that the students are joining. Okay. So here, wherever we are talking about, see, this is just a beginning. After that, I will be just coming up with much more exercises. We are just going to deal with those kind of an exercises. Here, what they are talking about, When we just look into the content of this paragraph, which is right in front of you, there are two sorts of men. Okay, this is where they are talking about two kinds of the livings. Two kind of the living is one is the modern living and was the ancient living. Again, where we people are talking about the ancient living, where they're titling it as a stone age. And on the other hand, where we people are talking about the modern age. So what they are doing on one hand, one person there they are terminate the terminology which they are applying is Neanderthal man, which is known as the Germans, and on the other hand, they are talking about the French people. So they used to fight. There was a kind of a war, and that war was something which was for their own occupying their own land or occupying their own area. Same is the thing which is being repeated over here also, where we people are talking about the modern times also, isn't it? So that is a kind of a contrast, or that is a kind of a comparison which these people are trying to make through that small little kind of a paragraph which is being introduced in front of you. So that is why I asked you the question. The first question was that only, that key, where and how. What is the difference? But what was happening in that age and what is happening in the current age also. Okay, so as we people have seen that there was a kind of a theory, and that theory was something which was being given by Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin once said that there is always a kind of a survival of the fittest. So where we people are talking about survival of the fittest. So that is something in order to survive. This is something which we people have seen in animals also, that they had their kind of a niche, they had their kind of a boundaries, and what they do, they stay over there. They try to control things. Okay, so that is something which is being mentioned there. Apart from this, is that in if we now again I'm going to share the screen. I hope people will not run away. Yes. So here what they had done, they had given you a kind of a time, and that is something where they are talking about in the year of 1830, a French official unearthed it in a valley of a Somme, strange implement of a flint now recognized as a weapon, which the men of the old Stone Age made war. With these modest tools of death, it seems that the Neanderthal men from what is now called Germany and the Cro-Magnon men from what is now called the France fought 50,000 years ago. That means the ancient world which these people are talking about, the primitive age. So that means see, there was a kind of a continuous fight which was going on. And the current time which they are mentioning is 1830. The right time over here is 1830. So what these people are trying to say, that there was a kind of a constant fight which was happening early, and now 20 years ago, modern Germans and modern Frenchmen fought again. So again there is a kind of a fight, and again in the same valley. So they are talking about that same place they are fighting for the same price with the magnificent tools of death that kills 10,000 of men in a day. One art alone has made indisputable progress in the history, and that is the art of war. That is again something which these people are trying to mention over here. If we just look towards the first paragraph also, so what does it mean? It means that again, there is a kind of a beginning, there is a kind of a middle, and there is a kind of an end. But whenever a paragraph is being starting, if you just look towards the structure of example number, I'm just going to have a kind of a comparative study of both the example number one and example number two. So if we just look towards example number one, what does it mean? It is something which is just a kind of a thought system, is something which is being mentioned within few lines. and it is only in one paragraph. And here, if we just look towards the example number 2 also, the thought system is something which we have only in our one paragraph. As I was telling you earlier, it doesn't contain subpara. We do not have subparas in it. Okay, so we just have one paragraph, and one paragraph explains each and everything, because there is a kind of a beginning, there is a kind of a middle, and there is a kind of an end. This is how they have developed it. Here, if we just look towards the first example. So what does the first example says? The first example talks about, here again, if you just look, there are few things which are being given in a form of an italics. That means the vast majority of the people where they live and whatever their occupation come in contact with the animal in one way or the other and have to deal with them. So whatever we have, every person have to deal with. That means कि whatever, wherever they live, whichever occupations these people are having, they have to deal with certain kind of the animals, either directly or indirectly. So here it is obvious that a hunter has to know the ways of his quarry, that the farmer must be aware of the habits in his farmyard animals and the creatures that damage his crops. So here the first target which he is talking about is just giving you an example that every person has its own occupation. If we people are talking in terms of the hunters, if we people are talking in terms of the farmers, if we people are talking about the fishermen. Okay, all these people deals with certain kind of the animals, whether they are domestic animals, whether they are any kind of the pet animals, whatever. Everyone is dealing with certain kind of the animals. Here again, so that means ki if we are having certain kind of the domestic animal, we should be aware of their habits also, what they need, what they require. All these things are something which are required over there, which are required over there. Apart from that, there is another kind of a thing which is being mentioned over here. Here, they are saying that it be aware of the habits of the farmyard animals and the creatures that damage his crops. Okay, so that means there are pros and there are cons with each and everything. So that means that there are certain kind of the animals which are helpful for them, and there are certain kind of the animals which are bad for their crops. Okay, so that is something which they should know. And then again, when I quoted one thing, and what was that? That was survival of the fittest. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the Darwin's theory also, I quoted this one also in front of you. So that means the adventure of living. Everything is there which have the advantage as well as there is a kind of a disadvantage. So here again, when we just look towards this, it mentions this thing. He may want to ward off the roaches in the kitchen, or he may keep a dog or a bird to grow familiar with the way his pet behaves. So now, again, on one hand, this is a kind of a comparative. Comparative, that means ki on one hand, there are some people who deals with the domestic animals. There are some people who pet animals. There are some people whose life is something which is their occupation is something which is completely based on, like when we people are talking about the fishermen. So they earn through it, isn't it? When we people are talking about the farmers, so they for their crops also, for everything, they are dependent on it. When we people are talking about the farm animals, what are the farm animals? Can anyone give me the example of farm animals? Anyone? What are farm animals? This is a very basic
That's
question.
like chicken, cow, maybe
Yeah?
dogs,
No?
a
No, no,
duck,
no. Sorry?
sheep,
Sheep. Yes.
sheep.
Exactly. Yes. Sheep is a farm
Horse.
animal. Horse is a farm animal. Very good. You mentioned duck also, no? Hen. All these can be considered as the
Yeah,
farm
I mentioned
animals.
that too.
Okay, okay. That's good. That's good. Okay, so here that is where we people are talking about these kind of the things that their livelihood is something which is dependent on these kind of the farm animals. Okay, and here as you were mentioning one thing that means ki where we people are talking about one thing that means ki we use them as a pet, like we used to pet dogs, we used to pet cats at home. So these are the pet animals. So we understand their behavior. That is a modern kind of a living also. Even house sparrows. So all these are something that means even the modern city dwellers they also meet animals because if we people are talking about the house sparrows, so that is the speciality of the house sparrow that they don't make their nest anywhere else. They want to live with the human beings. They will make their nest right in front of where we people are. And they are not that much bad. So that is something which is important. So here what we have seen, so that means if there are someone who earn their livelihood through the animals. On the other hand, when we people are talking about the city life, the people who lives in the modern people, so they also deals with the kind of the animals, and their animals are someone whom they pet. And when we move further, he may want to ward on the roaches in the kitchen or may keep a dog or a bird grow familiar with the way his pet behaves. All over the world, among primitive tribes as well as in the modern society, there are those who delight in the observation of animals and their growing awareness of the fact that sharing our world with our fellow creature is like traveling together. So this is how we people have seen that where we people are talking about. I just gave you the example of the house sparrow. So house sparrows are someone who are going to build their nest right in front of the place where human beings live, and they love to be there. This is how they are being made. They are not going to go to the jungle. They are not going to make their nest on the trees. They are going to make somewhere near a kind of a society or a kind of a building. Same is there with the pigeons also. But that is what we people have seen. So that means the animals as well as the human beings, they had a kind of a relation, and that relation where they gel together, and that is how they behave. Okay. Earlier also, see, both if you just look towards the example number one and if you just look towards the example number two, see, they both are giving you a kind of a contrast between two different words. That is the similarity which you can come up. That is something which you can summarize. Are you understanding? So that is something where we people can say that on one hand they are talking about the ancient time and on the other hand they are talking about the modern time. One is the early age and another one is the new age. Common similarity is that when we were there in the earlier time also we used to pet animals. When we are in the modern time also we used to pet animals. So that means ki our life goes on a same kind of a pace with the other things. So that means ki animals are someone who can be a kind of a friends for us. We used to live with them. So that is what they are saying all over the world among the primitive tribe as well as the modern society are those who delight in observation of the animals, and there is a growing awareness of the fact that sharing our world with a fellow creature is like traveling together. We enjoy being surrounded by beings who, like ourselves, are deeply absorbed in the adventure of living. So that is what we have seen. That means even this is what we observe. We observe so many things. We learn so many things. Even uh, every time, wherever we are going to keep a pet or something like that, there is a kind of a behavior which we observe. And as per our observation, this is just like that means we are traveling together, we are enjoying together, we are deeply absorbed by their adventure of living, and that is something how we live a life. So that is a way of our living, that is a modern way of our living. So that is what we have seen, that everything has its own importance. And that is why we people can say that means where whatever is there, we have to deal with certain kind of things. So that is something which these people are mentioning. So here what we have seen, if we just look towards the questions, and again the same thing is being mentioned over there in the example number 2 also. Okay, example number 3 is something which is very, very easy for you, but the problems which was there was with example number 1 and 2. So that is something which is important. So here, when we just look towards the exercise, so that is where again what they are talking about, that what are the similarities, what are the two things, what are there. Okay, there are two different perspectives which these people have brought. One is the ancient and another one is the modern. So these two perspective is something which the author is talking about by giving you a kind of a brief note on two different types of life. So that is something which we people have seen. Now, is there any question which anyone have to ask? Let me see how many of you people have escaped. Oh, okay, great. Very good number. Very good number. Now only 9 students are there, which I could see. Is there any question? Let me see in the chat box.
I don't have any question, teacher. You can continue. I think others don't have to.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, teacher, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a paragraph and a easy?
Paragraph and an essay. Okay. On one
Yes.
hand, wherever paragraph and an essay. Okay. So here where we people are talking about a paragraph. Okay. So as I'm talking about what a paragraph is something where we are explaining a kind of a thought, and that is not a very brief form. That means in a very short, in a very precise form, we are giving a kind of an example with a very limited kind of a usage of a word. The word limit in a paragraph should be till 100 to 150. So that is how, and whenever we are talking about a paragraph, that thought is something which is always being explained in a form of, it should always have a beginning, it should always have a middle, and it should always have an end. So this is how we will be developing a kind of a paragraph. But when we are talking about piece of writing, an essay, or where we people are talking about a kind of a composition, isn't it? So where we are talking about an essay, first of all, essays are something which can be categorized into two different forms. One is the formal essay and another one is the informal essay. Again, essay comes under the piece of a formal writing style. So wherever we people are talking about an essay, so essay always contains a kind of a title. And that title is something which is based on, and that is what we are going to do. The approach will be brief. That if I'm talking about the structure of a paragraph, the paragraph doesn't contain subparas. It will be a small para in which you will be briefing your whole idea. That is how we write a paragraph. But where we people are talking about what an essay is, essay always have a kind of a structured pattern. That means ki first of all, it will always contain a kind of an introduction. Second form, that is whatever title it is being given, we are just going to give it a kind of a brief introduction. Then we will be talking about the historical context. Then we will be talking about what are the pros and cons. Then what we will be doing, we will be just summing up with a kind of a summary. So this is how we formulate a kind of an essay.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay. And apart from that, wherever we are, as I told you, so here what we people have seen, that means ki there are certain kind of the essays. That means ki there is a formal kind of an essay writing and there is an informal kind of an essay writing. Okay, so wherever we are talking about the informal kind of an essay writing, so informal kind of an essay writing is something where you are talking about your own thought, where you are just talking about a kind of a story, where you are just talking about a kind of your own personal narration. So that is something which is called as an essay. On the that is an informal kind of an essay. If you are writing something about your friend, so that is an informal kind of an essay, or that can be considered as a personal kind of an essay. So that is there. Is there any other question?
Do we cover all the blocks in this month?
Sorry?
I said that do
Yeah,
we
yeah,
cover
yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah. Yeah, we are going to cover all the blocks within this month. You have 4 sessions with me. Today it was just a kind of an introductory session. So I'm not dealing with the things in a very brief manner. From the next session, that means you are having your next class in next Tuesday. You will be having your next class with me in Tuesday. So there what we are going to do, we are going to deal with all these blocks briefly, with all the different kind of the examples which I'm going to deal with. Okay. I hope this was why I gave you the structure of FEG2, because I hope that this is the only syllabus which you are having. Okay. So this is the standard structure of the syllabus and we are going to cover up all these kind of the topics. And further, we are going to deal with, first of all, we are going to discuss with the block 1. Then we will be talking about the block 2. And then in the next session, block 3 and consecutive form, we are going to discuss about that one. Apart from that, we are going to talk about how the question and answers are being done, how they are going to give certain kind of the questions. That also we are going to deal with. So that is all the things which we people are going to discuss later. Apart from this, any other?
Ma'am, I was asking about exam. The questions will come from the main university or just from IGNO only?
See, the IGNO forms the question paper, so you will be getting that kind of a question paper.
Okay,
You
got
have
it.
a
Thank you.
standard set of the questions, no? So that is something from where you will be getting.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other question? No? Okay. So now what we are going to do, we are going to deal with the there are 2 more essays which are left. So we are going to deal with those 2 essays, example number 4 and example number 3 for 5, which is being given in your textbook. So again, I'm going to share the screen and we are just going to deal with that. Okay. So now again, if we just look further, there is a kind of an exercise number 4. Okay, so here what we see, there is a kind of a question which is being asked. That means the topic sentence of the paragraph below is hidden somewhere within a paragraph. Find it in the place in it, the correct position. After you have completed the exercise, you should check your answer with that given by us in the end of the unit. So if we just look towards the another one. So what does it say? Exercise number 4. The title is something which is there, the in mother's shadow. So during its early week, it depends almost completely upon her, and she in turn fastens her attention upon it, although from time to time she will allow the other females to hold and fondle it. Sheltered by its mother, the growing infant gradually widens its contact with the outside world. Though its first week is spent sleeping and nursing, by its second it is already stumbling about and being restrained by a yank of a tail or leg. Nothing could be more important to the development of an infant Indian language than its relationship with mother. At 4 weeks of unsteady feet, it ventures forth and discovers the world, or at least perhaps it within the safe 4 feet of its mother. So this is something which is being taken from a kind of a title, and that is okay. The examples. Okay, so there are, this is the topic which is being given, and this is something which is the monkey success in the tree in the primates, time life books. That is something which is being taken. So the title is something which can be considered as the mother shadow. During its early week, it depends almost completely upon her, and she in turn fastens her attention upon it, although being from time to time she will allow other females to hold and fondle it. So again, it is all about the motherhood. It is something which is about a newborn infant, and that is how it is being taken care of. So though the first week it is spent sleeping and nursing, so the first week is something where infant is of few days. So the whole time will be spent in sleeping. And by its second, it is already stumbling about and it being restrained by a yank of a tail or leg. And later on, what it does, it starts making a kind of a movements. Nothing could be more important to the development of an infant ventures forth and discovers the world or left that part of it within the say 3 or 4 feet of his mother. So that means at the 4th week. So if we just look towards this paragraph, if you just focus or if you just look how this paragraph is being developed. So this paragraph again talks about everything. Okay, so this is what about the beginning. And there is a kind of a time period which they are mentioning. That means the 1st week, the 2nd week, the 3rd week, and the 4th week. So all these things, all the kind of the development of the thought is something which is being mentioned in the paragraph itself. So the paragraph is complete within itself. So that is what we people have seen. Apart from this, there is that means if you have to make a kind of a topic, what will be the proper topic for it? So what will be the proper topic? That depends on your thought, your thinking. You have to pop up with certain kind of an example. You have to come up with your own kind of the reasons or the answers to that you have to mention over here. Apart from that, if we just look towards the exercise number 5, men have cleared away forest for making the field for growing crops. They have moved mountains to make a room for roads and cities. They have built huge dams across rivers to turn valleys into the lake, and they have built the dikes to push back the sea and create more dry land to live on. Once everyone cheered with the progress that man made in changing this his environment like this, but now many people are worried about the problems that such changes can bring. When the Aswan Dam was built across the river Nile in Egypt, it was meant to help farmers by giving them water when they needed it. Unfortunately, people did not realize that much of the nourishing food for the plants in the rivers would be trapped by the dam, so the farmer crops would suffer. Also, hundreds of kilometers away from the mouth of the river Nile, less fresh water goes into the Mediterranean Sea. This means that the sea will become more salty and fewer fish will be able to live in it. When this happens, most people who catch fish will live for their living will suffer. So again, this is something which is being taken, and again, there are two topics which are being mentioned over here. Okay, so here, what does it means? It means that on one hand, they are talking about the kind of a development from an infant, how it is very near to the mother, and finally how it starts growing up. That is a development. Okay, so that is something which is being given in exercise number 4. That is something which is being mentioned, totally dependent on the mother, where the infant is very, very young, who doesn't want it to take a kind of a risk, who, and it is the mother who holds her attention on it, and that is how he develops, how he that is how there is a kind of a process of a development which takes place. That is something which is being mentioned in the exercise number 4. Apart from that, in exercise number 5, it is being mentioned. It is something which is a very important kind of a topic where they are mentioning about that the constructions of the dam, and that is even though we people are going towards a kind of a development, but somewhere it is something which is threatening, and that is threatening everything. Okay, and that is something which is bringing a kind of a disaster, or even in the name of a development, it's not a kind of a proper development, but there are certain kind of the disadvantages of that development also. So that is something where they are giving you a kind of an examples. That is one major cause of the deforestation, isn't it? We have seen that whenever there is a kind of a deforestation, what happens? There are plenty and plenty of landslides. On the other hand, in the name of the development, what we are doing, we are just cutting up on the forest. We are just making the houses. We are making shelters. Again, that can be considered as a major cause of a climate change, a major kind of an alert of which takes towards the kind of a global warming. And again, what they are talking about that nobody, when we are talking about the dams, so dams are also something we are thinking that that will be something which will be beneficial for us. But they are giving you a kind of an example that in the name of the development, they are giving a kind of a project which happened in the river Nile of the Egypt. So they thought that the farmers will be, it will be helpful for the farmers, but that was not helpful for the farmers also. On the other hand, they could not utilize the water because the water was something which was being trapped by the dam only. So it was not at all, the nourishment was something which was being lowered. And automatically, what happens towards the sea level also, the level of the salt increase. So this is something which is a kind of a report, and this is something which these people are trying to mention over here. So that is how you people will be dealing with these kind of the questions. Okay, so that is, there are two prime examples. Let me see where they have given me the questions. Okay, so that is there. So if now my question to you is that if you have to suggest a kind of a question, or if you have to suggest a kind of a title for example number 5, what will be the suitable title for it? What do you suggest? Anyone? Any kind of a title? Am I audible? Yeah.
Sorry,
Was
teacher,
I
we
audible?
couldn't catch your question.
See, I read two, we were doing two different exercises. Exercise number 4 and exercise number 5. Okay. So one exercise was something that means which was being based on the development of an infant, which we were dealing. I was sharing a kind of a screen. And on the other hand, there was another kind of an exercise which was talking about the development, which was talking about the climatic change. So I was just asking you the question that what would be, what do you suggest will be the right title for the exercise number 5, which we were dealing with? What will be the right title for it? That was my question. Any suitable title?
The title for exercise 5, I think it could be better to choose the damage that people can create for nature. It's a little long.
Okay, but that was not the title. Any suitable title which you suggest? Okay, no suitable title from your side?
I think the 4 exercise was about development. I think the 5 exercise also will be about the development of a country by their peoples.
No. It is not about the development. It's not about the development. The crux was something else. Okay. Since we have 13 students in this class, 13 students means 13 than that. Okay, so that means we have different thoughts. So what do you suggest? What will be the title? What should be the title for it? Hmm? That means, yes, the point was right, where you people were mentioning that there should be a kind of, it's all about the development, it's all about where we people are talking about, but what should be the title then?
Could it be the negative points of development?
See, the negative points which exercise number 5 was talking about, that man in the name of the development, what he was doing, he clarified all the forest in order to make the farms, in order to, on the other hand, he was someone who was building houses, development of the cities. In the name of the development, they introduced a kind of a project, and that was introduction of a kind of a dam. And that dam in the name of the development was something which was not yielding something good. It was something which was bad. It was bad for the farmers. It was bad for the livelihood. It was bad for the fishermen also, everyone. So what uh, title should be there for this kind of a paragraph? If you suggest it, the proper title for it. The crux of this whole paragraph, that means the exercise number 5, was that only. So development, do you think that development will be the appropriate title? Don't suggest any kind of a title. Yes, Adia, if I'm not pronunciating your name in a wrong manner. Any suitable title? It can be like man versus nature. That can be the title. No response? Okay. The raised your thumbs up, that means that, okay, that will be fine. Okay. So here where we people are talking about these kind of the things, that means, and okay. So suppose if the another question which this kind of an exercise may raise in front of you is, what will be the central idea of the paragraph? So what do you think? What should be the central idea of the paragraph in exercise number 5?
Can I tell something about it?
Yeah. Definitely.
The main idea of the paragraph in exercise 5 is this, that humans just are thinking about the development and progressing the technology and making something better for their life, but they don't think about the nature and the damage that they create by their
Hmm.
activities or maybe by their development. And the main idea that this paragraph can tell us or can point to pupil is this, that pupil should also, when they want to facilitate the life for themselves or for another human in the world or in the ground, they should also think about the other creatures too. I mean, trees or also animals, or and also they should think about the other
Mm, your voice was breaking a little bit. So here, the central idea is something that means somewhere in the name of the development, what is happening? That means it is a man is moving towards the development, the introduction of the technology, but somewhere it is damaging the climate, it is damaging the nature, and that is where there is a kind of a disbalance which is happening everywhere. That means disbalance, and that can be considered, that means which can be considered as a prime agendas which we people are talking about. If we talk about the global warming, if we people are talking about the acid rain, if we people are talking about the soil erosions, if we people are talking about any kind of the recent things which are happening these days. So these can be considered as, that is what this main exercise number 5 is talking about. So that is what it is being mentioned over. Okay, that means somewhere nature has to pay the price with a kind of the development. What is we, even though we are developing, but still somewhere down on the ground, there is something which is bad, which is happening. So that is also something which is being there. Okay, so that is a very good kind of summing up, Adia, from your side. And when we people are talking about the another one, the another, that means the exercise number 4, which we people have done, the mother shadow. So what do you think that what are there? What should be mentioned over there? What should be the appropriate title for it?
I think growing of an infant can be a good title.
Good. Growing up of an infant. Any other suitable title? Any other title? What about developing stages of an infant? Can that be done? Okay. Any other? Because here, what it is being mentioned, it is something which is being mentioned into. That means there are 4 different stages which the paragraph is suggesting. The 4 different stages. The first stage, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. First stage is totally nursing. Second stage is eyes are not open, totally dependent. Third, development of the tails and all these kind of the things. And the fourth is when they are able to understand what is happening around. So all these things can be dealt over there. Okay, so that is there. So now we are moving towards the end, and if you people are having any kind of a question, you people can ask questions, and if you people have any kind of a doubt, we can just come up, or we can just sum up with those kind of the doubts. Any questions?
Teacher, I have a question about the paragraph.
Hmm.
When we have an essay or a topic, we should use maybe 2 or 3 or maybe more than that paragraphs to express our whole idea. Yes. Do you have my sound briefly?
Like like if you are writing a paragraph, you cannot include 2 or 3 paragraphs?
No, I'm talking
No.
about a topic or an essay. When
Hmm.
when we want to write a topic, we need to write 4 or 5 or maybe more than that paragraphs. And most of the times, I can see that at the first of each paragraph, there is a small space that we could recognize that where a paragraph starts and where it's finished. But is it necessary for every topic or every essay to follow this rule in paragraphs or no?
No, it's your choice. Okay, because whenever we are writing a paragraph, paragraph should be very simple. Okay, and that is something where you are going to write your idea. That is there which you are going to mention. Nothing more than that. No more. No, that means it requires only 4 to 5 or 6 lines. That's it. Within that, the paragraph is something which is being finished. We are going to talk in detail about all these kind of the paragraphs. We are going to talk about what are the types of the paragraphs. We are going to talk about uh, different kind of the methodologies through which we can write a paragraph. All these kind of the things we are going to discuss in our next session. So there you will be able to understand that what is the kind of a development, how you can develop your thoughts on a paragraph and how you can deal with your paragraph. So that is something which we people will be discussing in our later sessions, because Abhi, it is just a kind of a small introduction, nothing more than that. We have gone through certain kind of the exercises, but in my next class, I will be dealing everything in a detailed manner. Any other question? Top sentence, like if you are writing a kind of a paragraph, do you want that, as per my understanding, that means if you are writing a paragraph and if you want to write a kind of a saying, something like that, isn't it? So that can be done. And then you can extend your paragraph. That can be done. It can start with a kind of a saying also. Like something like if we quote Shakespeare or something like that. That is also there. So you can continue with that also. That can be included in a paragraph. That will be not wrong. Anything else? Any other question? No questions? Okay. So I hope whatever I was trying to tell you, we are going to see better all see these kind of the things we are going to discuss later. Later means that in my next session, we are going to talk about the structures. We are going to talk about what are the types of the paragraph, what are the forms of the paragraph writing. We people are going to talk about all those kind of the things, not now, but we will be talking about all these things in brief in our next sessions. And apart from that, I will be giving you certain kind of exercises which you will be dealing, which you have to write and you have to give the answers. Answers are not being expected from one or two students. Answers will be given by each and everyone. Everyone is going to participate and everyone is going to give the answers. Okay. So I think I will be winding up my session right now. So that will be all for today. We are going to meet on next Tuesday. Thank you everyone for listening for and showing your patience. And thank you everyone. I'm going to meet you on next Tuesday, same time. Okay. Okay then.